Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to another fabulous episode of Stories Around Azeroth. As always, I am the magnanimous Pete Titans Green Nevercoat, joined by my podcasting gnome in crime, one Mr. Frazley TC.
Hey! I'm doing good.
But it is an honor and a privilege to be joined by a guest once again. We are joined by Klanker from the Tauren and the Goblin. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. So thank you guys for having me on.
We're
Absolutely.
happy you're here as well.
I told people the episode that I had with you on the Frazlcast, sorry, shameless plug, but the episode I had with you, like I remember like the pre-show we talked, and then I think the post-show, even after stream went off, we talked for an hour. Like you're awesome. You're fun to talk with.
Well, thank you. I very much have enjoyed talking with you two, and it's just great to be here with you guys. So
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining us as we are still in the BFA endgame. Oh boy. it's dragging on a little bit, isn't it?
a little. For me, my group actually got down Heroic Ny'alotha one day I wasn't there, so they all got ahead of the curve. So I don't have ahead of the curve yet. And I'm like, please, just a little longer. So
Yeah, come on.
Please, don't leave. I know you've got your fancy dragons, but please, I need my fancy dragon.
I really do. I'm a mount hoarder by nature, so I need that
Same.
fancy dragon.
Absolutely
same.
Same.
See, we all understand. We're all on the same page.
It's why when Invincible doesn't drop for me, I'm like, curse you, Lich King.
It's the reason he's called invisible.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
Oh
I'm
no.
convinced.
Shall I tell you a mount that's harder to get than Invincible, Frazley?
What?
Rivendare's Death Charger.
Oh, that's right. And I know a friend who's been working on that since. Well, I haven't talked to them since vanilla, so I don't know if they're still looking for it. But I remember
It's amazing that it has like the same like percentage drop rate, and you can farm it more, but it just feels like it just doesn't drop.
Yeah.
So I'm going to upset both of you and say that I got it in a dungeon.
No, I have it. I've had it for years.
I don't have it yet.
But I'm just saying, like, it can feel like it doesn't drop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely can. I'm still after the Headless Horseman's mount after, what is it, like year 9, I think?
See, now I'm going to upset you, and I have that.
It's okay. Literally everyone I know has it. I think every year I do like 300 runs, and I have I have a spreadsheet. I'm not kidding. I have like 23 tunes that I run every year now, and I've seen it drop like 3 times every year, never for me. And I'm like, this is gonna be the year. And
I'm not looking forward to Valentine's. Love is in the air.
I have a friend that has that. He didn't even try to farm for it. He's just like, oh hey, this is cool. And he rides it around. I'm just like, it's fine.
That's it, innit? That's it.
And then Cap got 6 of the Headless Horseman one year. I'm like,
oh. It's okay, I'm just crying on the inside and the outside right now.
I just keep getting all the transmog stuff, like the plate and the sword, on characters that can't use it.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, god damn it.
Yeah, I finally got the plague mask from the Valentine's Day one on a clothy, and I was like, finally, because I had this on like way too many tunes. But
So how many mounts are you at on the account and on a personal character?
I think overall it's 420 something. And then per character it's, it can range anywhere from like 300 to whatever it is. I have the Lord of the Rains achievement, so I know that I'm like above the threshold.
Well, you'll have the 400, so
yeah.
fine.
So that's like my own personal achievement. I actually have almost all of the TCG ones just because I've collected
really
them over the years. Yeah.
Jesus.
I love the TCG mounts. The first one I got was the chicken, and that took me a long time to save up for, but that is like the pride and joy is the chicken mount. I'm like, I had to have it the first day I started. Wow.
Yeah, I've got a friend in the guild who's got like a cock mount. She tells me how she loves to just mount her cock and just ride off into the sunset. And
see, my favorite is riding it in battlegrounds because it goes bark, 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 and so I'm like running around on my goblin in a battleground, and people are like, is that a goblin on a chicken? And I go charging at someone, and I just turn around and run the opposite direction. They're like, I'm not sure if they're saying that they're a chicken or they're calling us chickens, or like, yes, you'll never know.
no, is there any mount that you're working on at the moment? Then, like, what's your oh god, there's a word for it, but like, what's your elusive one? What's the one that you really want the most that you're farming?
Headless Horseman.
Well, okay, but it's got like, do you have like a set mount farm every week?
So I used to. I kind of got out of my rotation. I'm missing a lot of the like raid boss overworld ones. So I used to do quite a few of those. I actually am still missing the one that drops off of the Timeless Isle, which sucks. Like the one that everybody got, the Thunder Dragon.
Oh, the
Black Onyx.
thundering onyx, yeah.
So everyone has that, and I don't still. So I used to go out there and farm that one all the time. But I guess I'm right now. I'm working on the Mechagon colors, so I have 2 colors left for the sabers, and so I'd like to get the blue sabers. So I guess that's the one I'm working on now. But
Yeah, I think I'm missing the one color I'm missing from Mechagon is the one that's from the chests. I think, or I might have that. No, I've got that. The only Mechagon achievement I'm missing is 2 of the minis. That's the only one I'm missing. Yeah.
I was gonna say, if anyone's having trouble with the chests, I farmed up way too many like pieces, so I can help you with that because they don't resell very well. So.
Oh yeah, no, my mount farm is not been going well. Between the Pandaria world bosses and the raid ones, they just none has refused to drop. So I've just fallen back and have been working on Conqueror of Azeroth, and like I've got 2 of the Zandalari zones left to go.
Oh wow.
And yeah, then I have my Scythe Claw. And I'll be like, yay.
I'm so jealous. I saw that one. I'm like, I want it more than anything, but I just kind of gave up on it because I'm like, there's no way it's going to happen. But
well, you could get the dungeon meta done. It's the same mount.
Not the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. But you're right.
Yeah. I mean, is it really? Like, I tell you what I did do in WoW this week was... I decided to actually go because the one mount that's achievable now that I really should get on with is the one from Visions, like for getting the 100k turn-in. I can't remember what it's called. The mementos.
Oh yeah, it's a hive mind of some kind.
Yeah, well, it's a drone. It's a buzzing drone type thing. But it's just like I decided to jump in and go through some Visions with some friends and. Oh my god, it's so much harder as a group. Like in terms of the way that stuff scales. Like I've had Mad World for months. I've done Vision solo all the way through, and then last night was I was in with like 2 friends, and I didn't realize how much harder it was, and I was like, you should get the Mad World achievement if you do it as a 5-man group because it's so much harder. It's ridiculous.
Do you have the mail muncher?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I don't have the mail muncher yet. I have kicked so many mailboxes.
I have all 3 different colors of that mount. Yeah.
But that's awesome.
Sorry.
You've just been mailing it in, right?
Yeah, that's it. Mailing it in. Well, all right. What have you been up to in the game, Mr. Frazley, this week? I know you've hit another milestone in your quest for lore.
Yes, so I now have Oldham and Hydril done, and now I just got to work on Twilight Highlands. So
you left the worst till last.
Hey, that's me. I always figured like work on the worst, and then after that it'd be Mop. So Carousel, Town Long, and then Dread Waste.
So Frazley, when you see Initiate Gold Mine in Twilight Highlands, tell him I said hi. You'll understand when you get there.
Okay.
Actually, if you paid attention in Vashir, and I think he was in Deepholm as well, if you did those.
Yes.
He's the one goblin shaman that ripped his elemental apart.
Oh, yes, that one. Yes.
Let's just say that story has a continuation, so...
Not a lot of people actually realize that.
And is Buddy there too?
I trying to remember if Buddy was there. Maybe.
Interesting.
I have to remember. I'll have to go back and play it. It's been a while.
Have you been up to anything else yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, Frazley, or both of you?
No, I just wanted to finish off with Torghast. Just like one final thing. I did Torghast on a warrior, and I got an ability to increase my slam by killing the phylacteries stacks up to 100.
Mm-hmm.
So initially I had like a 480% increased slam, which obliterated the mob. Then at one point I had a 2,240% one, but then I used it on a Maw Rat by accident, and I got one that like Whirlwind can heal me. So I'm excited to see what all these different abilities that we got are there, because when we were talking with Mitch, I loved hearing about all the things that like Mitch was finding in there too, and it's in each class seems to have something different. And I love how even if you already have a talent, it lets you choose another talent from the talent tree. So it's kind of cool. You can be like this like maxed out talent 10 talent build. One annoying thing though I found, deaths used to be like 3 to 5 per level. It is now no longer resetting at every floor. So like when you go in,
It's a set amount of deaths per thing. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, I get it, but it also makes it a little more difficult.
Just don't be bad, Frazley, or get carried. One of the two. Like,
Okay.
I honestly, at this point, when it comes to Torghast, I don't think the progression one is going to be that difficult. I think the progression for the 0 to 18 is going to be fine because it's going to be your weekly thing that they expect you to get out of the way, and they want everybody who's accessible to be able to do it. I think the difficulty is going to come in when we get the ability to do an endless run. You know, for the cosmetics. I think that's where the difficulty is going to be in the higher tiers.
Which makes sense. And I do like that hopefully that one will be going whenever you like, because I like the idea of seeing how far I can go. And like this one, it kicks me out again at a certain floor. And I still don't know if is that alpha or is that permanent, that it's just
so at the moment there's a couple of things that you can do. So you can do 0 to 18, which is what it is looking like it's going to be your main progression. And then you can jump in at a specific level of floor.
I didn't see that one.
They're in one of the different portals around the rooms, because there's ones that you can jump into and see different types of the area, like the fire one, the death one, and one higher up.
Okay, because all the ones for me were saying like quest here, quest here, quest
yeah,
here.
the ones which are quests are the ones with the different environmental stuff.
Okay.
I think it's the Echoing Halls is the 0 to 18. Sorry, Klanker, we're talking about all this fun Torghast stuff and you're not available. You can't get in there yet. Have you been up to anything else in WoW this week?
Let's see. This week, so I've been leveling a druid, another one. Don't tell anyone, I have like 10 of them. But I'm leveling a Zandalari druid for fun, and playing my Vulperian monk a little bit, and then doing the normal stuff.
What's your main?
My main is Clanker, the Goblin Resto Shaman, so he's been my main for a couple of years now.
Nice.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We all have different things that we play as a main. Because I just want to double back into what Frazley was talking about with Torghast, is that a lot of the anima stuff is going to be very much class-based rather than spec, and it's only when you can choose your talent that it's going to be spec-based. So I guess if you're Resto, you're going to be able to fire off lightning bolts and it won't bother you so much. If you're Enhancement and you're firing off lightning bolts, it'd probably be a bit more problematic. But
I mean, I fire off lightning bolts as it is now, so...
And there are some that surprise me. Like I can deal shadow damage as this warrior. So I got nature damage. So there's some interesting ones that are shooting out there. I had one annoying thing. I took one anima power and it was like, it works on your ability. And apparently that ability was either not in the game or wasn't working because it was
there's a lot of not yet implemented stuff in Torghast yet. But you got to remember, it's been a 3-day weekend over in America.
Absolutely.
I think so. That. And some people have, I think, a lot of devs have taken specific days off, and just, I hope everybody in America land is staying safe right now. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
It's a little bit crazy in the world right now, on top of everything else that was already going on previously. But yeah, well, it's nice to know everybody is still doing the normal stuff. Have you guys been going into visions and progressing your cloak still, or?
Yeah. I went with a cap this week and got mine up to 15. So now. It's just the working on the stuff with Mother. I've gotten all the solo Mother upgrades. Now it's just the group Mother upgrades, and I'm going to work on running full clears because I got the Malefic cores now to work on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing though. Now when I get that little circle around me, because I have enough corruption from getting gear that the circle appears, it's not really hurting me. Yeah, the eye. I get out of it if I need to, but it's just
you should just get out of it anyway.
Oh, I do, but one or two times I couldn't get out of it, so it took just a little bit of damage.
I'm sure Klanker will tell you, as a healer, that standing in the eye in any sort of party or raid situation will give you great and furious anger.
Okay, I will jump out whenever I see it. How's that for?
Or just when he's standing next to me anyway, and I'm just...
Yeah.
One day, Frazley, we're gonna get somebody that can teach you how to use weak auras and all that sort of thing to tell you when to not stand in the bad things.
I have the add-on GTFO, so that one does help.
I'm just
Yeah,
surprised you can't see a giant purple circle with a massive eyeball.
There's like 1,000 little like circles on the ground. How can we see one of these?
Like say he does have a point. If you're in Ny'alotha, like everything is purple with eyeballs. So at some point,
Exactly.
it's like, is that a new eyeball or has that always been their eyeball?
Yeah.
Well, they see, this is why I have weak auras. I have specific weak auras for when I'm tethered with the thing from beyond and everything else, and I have it make a large bloody klaxon sound because sometimes I miss the line, and
Right.
oh my god, like it gets so much now that I don't even look at getting corruptions if it's going to give me the thing from beyond anymore because I cannot be bothered to deal with it. It's like just it's a massive DPS loss. At least as a demon hunter, I've got cooldowns where I can stay in the eyeball and take 0 damage anyway. So it's fine. Oh my goodness.
Well, I was gonna say I've been starting to play more Warcraft with my brother. He normally plays on the Alliance side, and he does some mythic raiding over there and stuff. And he bought the expansion for Shadowlands, so he got a free boost. And he boosted a Horde character. I'm like, finally, I will corrupt him. My brother is the exact opposite type of WoW player than I am. So he has an add-on that skips all of the quests and tech.
Oh yes.
But he also really enjoys doing mythics and stuff. So it's been really fun playing with him. But he's standing there just like, just taking the thing from beyond, just taking all the damage. I'm just like, get out of the James, get out of that.
At least
Like,
as an Alliance player, he's not standing in and you're not having to heal him. So it's not your problem. You just get to watch
on the Horde.
Yeah. What does your brother play?
So he made a warrior on our side, but he mains a rogue, and I think he also has a monk. He's one of those people that always just has a different main and whatever's like current or the best or whatever.
Flavor of the month. Gotcha.
Yes, he's a flavor of the month sort of dude, which I have a lot of respect for because he like just gears characters to the teeth and he does it quickly, and I'm just like petering out over here. I'm like, yeah, my cloak rank is like 8. Do. People are like, how is the rating? I'm like, I don't know, but people stay alive and they keep me coming back. So
I think there's a big difference between mythic rating where like you really need to be at the best of the best, and then you'll have people like me who will make sure like their character is the best it can be with the content we do and just trolls through heroic and just lol at everything. And then you got people that just be like, fuck it, I don't care, and we'll just they'll do stuff as they want to do. Well, that's it, isn't it? Hit me.
No, I'm not trying to be hit by it. I just
It's disgraceful.
I'll just blame it on my bad vision.
Right, okay.
So, one of the things that has been enabled recently on Alpha is Chromie time, which is something we were shown at BlizzCon. Essentially, I think people were expecting something a little bit more grandiose, but it's essentially just a big bulletin board, and you get to choose an expansion. But I don't know what people were expecting, but I'm going to guess on the alpha it's because not a lot of people are testing it and they're in Torghast and they're checking out Shadowlands content. But, like, obviously there's nobody in those specific phases right now. So, I don't know.
In the alpha, I would test it.
Single.
Yeah, it's here. I'm like, yeah. That's one of my favorite things, actually, is leveling characters. So I'm kind of like...
Yep, me too.
It's fine.
Yeah, I've still got I want to have one of every race leveled. I've still got 3 allied races to go, and then I've got all but 3 horde ones, to start leveling. Oh no, I've only got Tauren, Nightborn, and Blood Elf at max level. So
you need a goblin. Completely unbiased opinion.
I have a Goblin Death Knight, but it's... I honestly don't like the way Death Knight's been. I really feel like, and this is completely off the cuff because I was thinking about this the other day, that they should change Unholy to be more of a caster. And then allow Holy to go back to the Legion thing of having 2-handed magic weapons, and so that they can share that with Unholy Death Knights, and then Unholy Death Knights can have magic plate as well, and that gives the fucking Paladin plate another use as well. So, I just feel, because even if you look back at original Death Knight kind of lore type stuff, they were some of them were casters.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'm just honestly like, what do they do? Oh, they fire death coil, and they've got a death and decay, and
Warcraft 2. Anyway, sorry. What?
So, are you giving them the cold shoulder feat by not wanting to play it?
I don't know. That would be if we were talking about Frost Death Knights, to be perfectly honest with you.
Sure, yeah.
Cold shoulder.
Don't give him credit for these bad puns. Don't do it, because you are allowing him to get away with stuff like this.
I mean,
Then
I love
I need
puns,
to
so-
I need to invest in a sign which says "Do not humor the Frazley." And it's like, do not feed the pets, because you feed the pets and then they expect it. You know, this is the problem. You do not humor the Frazley because then he continues to do the puns.
I'm probably the worst person to pick for that because I love puns.
I love puns.
Okay, good.
I love them as well. Frazley's puns are a very different kind.
That's true. I will admit. Yep, that's true.
It's okay, they're knee slapper puns. I appreciate those.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. That's one way. That's one way to say it, I guess.
I mean, there
Go
was
on.
that episode of Whispers of War where I told Syl that I love to make people groan, and Syl's like, "That's the episode title." I was like,
I love to make people. Yeah. Implied erotica.
"No, that was not what I meant." And that's a joke from.
There's a little in joke. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say you'd have to watch. You'd have to go listen to Frazzlecast.
Well, I don't even. I know that joke's in the episode. I realized on second thought, I don't know if we actually talked about the actual joke. It came up in there in the show, but I'm like, oh,
It must have come up at least twice in the show
yeah.
because I was the one making the joke. So I've got to keep it rolling. You know, it's the thing. You come up with a joke, you got to keep it rolling. So,
Yeah.
But obviously, I think it started in the pre-show.
Which is the downfall of it, because then I just realized someone's going to listen and be like, what?
They're just going to hear me shouting implied erotica, which is fine. So I just sound like a crazy old man, which is even better. Because that's exactly what I am. Just a crazy old person.
At least you admit it now.
Exactly. I mean, what do you expect me to say? It's insane. But yeah, Chromie time. It's weird. A lot of people. I think a lot of people were expecting something different. Des Mephisto, who's obviously tested this, has got he did Warlords testing, and with treasures, I think he got it to below 4 hours. to
Yeah.
get to 50,
Because
which is insane.
he actually set two records in WoW this week. It was one 5 or 6 hours, and then he went down to 4 hours. And we were talking about this on the Warcraft Radio Shadowlands roundtable, and he brought up an interesting point that there's a part of it where, when you're in BFA content, it actually is better to be taking the BFA gear than some of the heirlooms because of your battle power that you get from the stuff. And if I remember right, at least in Chromie time, the heirlooms are good, but that there's still a thing where the stats on heirlooms are not as good as some of the stuff that you can get down. You lose the XP boost.
That's the thing. Any leveling guide which you use for BFA says that you dump the heirloom for an Azeroth piece.
Yeah.
But that's still fully dependent on having the neck piece as well. And the Azeroth pieces are max level for that sort of item level. So they'll give you the stats because they're a massively ahead piece. They get you entry level. They're 280, I think, straight off the bat once you get into BFA. So I can fully understand why that would be the case. But when it comes to leveling, I think I'd still choose a personal favorite expansion, and I'd probably still go and do Mists again or something else. You know, I don't think I could stand BFA leveling anymore. I've done way too much of it. Way too much.
So I actually just leveled doing islands, which is great.
Yeah,
and that's one of those things where I haven't hired myself on BFA because of that, which is extra excellent because I love all of the zones. But it's I don't know. I'm more excited to level more characters through it again, even though I have all those screenshot folders that we won't talk about. So I don't need to refresh on the quests, but I'm really excited for Chromie time just because I think it'll be nice because I never have to go through Hellfire Peninsula ever again.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've
I mean, you
leveled
don't have
23
to
characters.
now, to be fair.
No, to be fair, that's more recent. That was before all 23 of my characters were. Never
Yeah.
again.
I don't.
Pegged out there.
Do you play on a PvP server? Or like you play with PvP enabled?
Oh, I get it because there's like a 30% thing. but I
I only will ever do that on my main because I'll know how that class will play.
Yep.
I don't know. Like, I think Hellfire still has a certain charm to it. Well, I think all of Outland has a certain charm to it.
I guess it depends on how many times you've gone through there.
Yeah, because I was talking with Grand Nagus. He made a good point. Outland has a ton of quests, but I would say the quest design does not hold up as well because what we have before 60 is Cataclysm stuff, and I think Wrath and onwards they really got the quest design down, and that they fixed a lot of the things that we had issues with. Or there are a couple mobs in Wrath that. Like someone will like start a scenario and then you're waiting there and then like someone can come in and then just start the quest. There are a few of those, but
I remember when Arthas used to walk in Stratham. Like, he's just like, and then I remember the buff. They're like, yeah, we buffed him so he actually runs now. And you're like, thank goodness. He was so slow.
Yeah, no, that was horrible.
That was horrible.
that was legitimately horrible, especially when it was on content to do it and you tried to do the timing for the Bronze Drake on day one.
I did that when it was current. I remember him like, do. I'm like, Arthas, hurry it up. Or so help me.
Yeah.
But
put
I'm sorry.
that thing back where it came from. Also help me.
Don't.
I feel about Arthas anyway.
No, I think there's two different ways to look at Hellfire Peninsula leveling. One of them is on content where we didn't have flying mounts until 70, and one of them is with flying mounts at 150%. You know, I think it's good. It still has the same leveling problems that classic WoW had, where it's go and do this, come back, go and do that again, come back, instead of like the evolved way of leveling.
Well, and I still think that stuff was in the WoW Dev Diary. John Stats talked about how they didn't expect people to not want to grind and just do quests, and that was a late change in their development as they're finding people like the quest, so they added that, and it's only been since they've moved on that they've fixed a lot of the quest design.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
I was gonna say I have a great example of this. I was in another storm yesterday, and so I okay, you have to do a Scryer's quest. So I went all the way down to Shadowlands. I'm like, okay, I turned in the quest, then I go all the way up to like the furthest little island in Area 52, or not Area 52, another storm north of Area 52, and I do that, and then they're like, I go all the way back to Shadowlands again, and then go to Area 52 to complete the quest chain. I was just like,
I had that in Wrath. It made sense for this quest. It was an Ice Crown. It's like, okay, I need you to go to Shatrath. I need you to go over here. And like, I felt like I was just flying around on this one quest.
Yeah, I mean, Wrath still has those teething problems, and it's only with Cataclysm that they've really got the chains. Like, go to this place, get a bunch of quests, go there, and like finish everything, and then you're good, and you move on and get everything at once. Like,
yeah,
they definitely made steps in Wrath. Myths is where I think they've nailed it on the head going forward.
And one thing I noticed with like Legion going on is when I was playing ESO, not to put to another game, but like you felt like when you went to a place you discovered quests, and I definitely feel that in Legion and BFA that you feel like you're discovering a quest hub, that it's kind of you're heading this way, and as you're going along, oh, look at that, someone's over here. When playing The Witcher, you're just going along and you're like, oh, hey, there's a quest right there. Okay, I'll get it. And I like feeling like you're discovering a quest, not that someone's directing you to the quest.
Although I will argue, or not argue, I will say that I do like Outland. You're right. I think it does have a certain amount of charm to it. I think the frustration is when you're trying to do all of the quests in Outland, but like the stories are still there. They're not to the same quality that we have now, but this was also really early WoW, so I'm willing to forgive a lot of it. But there was some really interesting, like Zangromarsh is one of my favorites. It has some really interesting zones on the Horde side, at least. You have...
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Yeah,
yeah,
the Horde side for Outland is very good.
And we have some
much of the Alliance.
Some good mechanics now. Like I remember, doing before Legion added the multi-tapping. I was trying to do Zangromarsh, and that was a pain. There was like this one boss. You're sitting there, like, okay, here the boss is up here. Even in your same faction, somebody will come in and be like, I was sitting here waiting for this boss to appear so I could kill it. And they at least fixed some of those grievances too.
Oh yes, someone in the chat said Outlands is all about picking up poop quests. I'm like,
Yes.
all of the poop quests.
I
I will
mean-
never forgive them for that.
True. There's at least a poop quest every expansion. though.
Even in Hyjal, there's a quest not about poop, but about going to outhouses and talking to the guy in the outhouse.
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, that's one of my favorites.
They're all just a bunch of really shit quests to do.
That was a good
See,
one.
that's how you do it. Yeah, I think when I say it's got a certain charm, I want to say it's got nostalgic charm.
Yeah.
Like I think if you had a new player come in and did the Shadowlands leveling system where they go through BFA and then they find out that they've got a choice and they choose Outland, I think they'd be really disappointed. Especially if they went and did like what's classified as Cataclysm leveling, which is basically revamped Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms, and which then pushes you into like the Cataclysm zones at like level 30. Which so I think there'll be a massive disconnect there. Unless you're able to like still do Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms from 0 like 1 to 50, you know. It's got a real case of being a big disconnect. But something Mephisto brought up, which I think warrants a bit of discussion, is that he'd like the Chromie time to be like an option for a higher difficulty for leveling, which would give its own separate rewards. Now, personally, while I'm not against that, I really think that leveling needs to be perfected across the board first, and endgame needs to be something that players aren't going to hate. Now, as we've already stated here, like that, where there's many different kinds of players already, you know, between the ones that are level, to the ones that will go and do raiding and Mythic Plus and everything else. And I'm sure that's expansion across an entirety of like the player base as a whole. But as two people who would primarily level, if there was an option to have a higher difficulty level for leveling with different based of rewards, I think one of the examples he made was like a legendary heirloom or something like that. Would that entice you, or do you just consider leveling a means to an end to get to endgame?
That's a good question. Like, I enjoy leveling because I like the stories of the levels primarily, which is my screenshot folder library, which I keep talking about. I think in some ways it would make it more interesting if there was a way to make it more difficult. I mean, you can take off all your heirlooms now, but it's the difference between that and not Cataclysm, Classic is leagues, you know, like now I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna run out there as a level 3 and I'm gonna like wind up like 5 mobs and I can kill him and it's no big deal, and I get tagged by one mob in Classic and I'm just hauling my butt all the way down the road. I'm like, please somebody save me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it would be fun. Like
It would almost turn it into like a speed leveling type of system, because he brought up like
No, I wouldn't say speed leveling, Frazley. Like there's a difference between difficulty and speed leveling.
Well, yeah, I meant more like it would turn leveling into more than just what you do to get the end game, but it would make it its own bracket. Because like he brought up like getting other cosmetics, titles, things to show that wow, you've been through the game multiple times, and it would really give you a, like, you're walking around and be like, that person has been all around Azeroth.
I think what would be really nice is if there was a way to enable Iron Man leveling within the game.
Oh yeah.
Like, if there was actually like a way to turn that on as an option, and if you did that, then you get an achievement in game with a title. Like, I think stuff like that would be really cool. Like it would disable auction house stuff, and like the vendors would only have like the grey items, stuff that would fall into the rules. You know, I feel like stuff like that would be a side project for like the devs to like work on it. Some dev to work on it while the rest of them are working on like an end game thing. And I think that's how it's going to be, because it's an MMO. Like, I think it'd be very different. Like if World of Warcraft was a single player game that was available, then I imagine it would play very much like, say, Final Fantasy 15, where you've got your big open world where you do your quests from point to point with a linear story, and it would work out very differently with the way that WoW does. But I don't know. I feel like Mephisto's on the right track with additional difficulty levels, because it exists externally with Iron Man, as we've had on in the past and everything else. Having a way to turn that on in game could be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Would be enjoyable, maybe. I don't know. Like,
I mean, I feel like they could do it. I don't want to say easily, but like they could either do they could tweak like the leveling thing, like where you can sink down to a certain level. Like the first time I encountered that was in Final Fantasy 14. So I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, someone that's a max level can sink down to the same level. But I feel like at the same time there might be something they could do where like every single mob is an elite or something. You know, like something that would.
I would hate that.
Yeah, you would. Like,
I would hate that.
That'd be challenging, though. If they did that amount of damage, you couldn't pull more than one.
Almost like turning Chromie time, because it does sound like Chromie time is instance. If I was reading that right, that when you're in Chromie time, you are different from people, and that could go into like New Game Plus. I mean, it'd be like, okay, you've got these challenges. Okay, here's Northrend and Kalimdor, but you have only this, or you've got to do it in time. I mean, there's a lot of things they could do with Chromie time to add that difficulty and that challenge.
Well, and I think they've gotten a lot of that road work in with Mythic Dungeons, right? Like,
yeah.
I always like to look at WoW because there's always things I can tell where they're like little test cases in the beginning of the expansion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then like you see them implement it in full scale in the next expansion. And usually I can only figure out what that is once I go back to the old expansion. But
well, you used to be able to do it because Wrath is a good example of this, because you'd go through the dungeon, see what ability bosses had, and be like, that's a testing case for something that mages could get. Like a good example is the Sanlir boss in Azure Narub, and he had the fireball which went in a different direction. What did mages get in Mr. Pandaria as an option? They got the mage orbs.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but you're right. Like, there's just a lot of fun things that they have. And I think that's one of the things that I love the most is just watching the devs take these amazing toolkits that some of them are expansions old and they just brush off the dust. They're like, this is cool. Let's bring this back. Let's either give it to the players. Let's make a new, like, the Proving Grounds, I think, were actually kind of the beginnings of Mythic and Instance dungeons in a way. So like all of these cool tools that they have, the ability to change zones, so like you can go to the Dragon and you can go to either to the Cataclysm version or the Legion or whatever it is. They just have so many cool tools to be able to reinvent parts of the world or do whatever they need to do, which is a colossal undertaking, even like tweaking all the questing stuff, but
yeah,
I'm really excited to see what the teams will come up with, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did do a challenge mode sort of deal, just because I know people enjoy.
I think it's the next step. Like I think that the devs have to cater to the people that just want to level characters, because there's only so much you can provide at endgame for every person. Like you've got your 5-man content, there's single player content. Like if we look at BFA at the moment, you've got single player content in the form of visions and the assaults and everything that's out in the world. You've got 3-player content in the form of islands, which can also just be classified as group content with Mythic Plus and just dungeon running as a whole. And then you've got the bigger content, which is raiding, which is up to 30 for normal and heroic, and then you've got Mythic as well, which is 20 if you want to go on the end game sort of thing. Outside of that, like there are a lot of people like yourselves, as you mentioned, that do leveling, and people that just want to have like a bunch of characters, see the lore, have the opportunity to see everything at a given level, and they just want to, I don't know, have something. And then I think having the option of a challenge is there. I don't think there's anything wrong with having the option, Yeah. And
well, I could see them, even if they started doing that for leveling, I could see them doing like squishes for raids, like old school raids. So you get shrunk down to whatever level it is, and like some of the gear you have you can't use or whatever. Like there's a lot of things that they could do too. I know people can like cap their levels now and do that, but it'd be fun. Like, think about your raid is maxed out. You're like, oh yeah, we just beat Heroic N'Zoth, we're bored. Let's all do AQ 60 or something.
Yeah.
Like, let's go get like the whole guild together, and we'll all get squished down to item level, and then people's like, yeah, let's all die hundreds of times.
I think we mentioned something similar. We're having like a level lock per expansion would be cool as well, because I think we raised it last week. Like Herald of the Titans was something that was raised as well. Obviously, item levels are a completely different thing to being level locked, but it's something else to go with it.
I've completed a Black Temple once in Time Walking, and that was cool seeing that raid. I never did it at current content, and that was fun going through. I've not done Old War as Time Walking, but I enjoyed that, and I could even see. I had a thought, and then I lost it. It was.
I'll tell you something.
Ice Crown. When I was in Ice Crown on my mage, I died. And I actually got to be rezzed by the ending. I was like, I've never seen a character get rezzed at that last moment. So that was actually a pretty cool moment, because I didn't have enough of an eye level to get the Lich King before he sent me flying off the. I was trying to get the ads, but something I did just made me fly all the way off. And
you stood in the trap in phase 1 is what you did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like you can say your ability, you can say what happened to you, and I instantly know.
Yep.
You definitely miss something for not doing, like, there's something to be said for doing
for that. Oh my god.
Oh, I worked on those too. Those were especially getting all the bloods or all the dots and stuff. Yeah, that was.
I did it in Cataclysm.
All I'm going to say, Frazley, is that there is something for doing some of these raid fights on content. Like, oh my god, what's the name of the Death Knight in Black Temple?
Oh, dude, I know who you're talking about. Yes, yeah, Gorfiend. Yep.
That ability, that raid fight in TBC was something else. Like, I remember that there was an external tool that was made for everybody to practice what buttons you had to press. That fight was a pain in the ass. And then Brutalis was a complete gear check in Sunwell. Then you had pre-nerf Muru, which I will only ever hear tales of because I didn't get to see that fight. And then I think 3.0 was the first time they literally went in and health nerfed bosses for the expansion. And then everybody went in and just cleared the hell out of everything. Like, post-nerf Muru died, and then killed Jaden died. Bosses that were stuck on Illidan in Black Temple in 3.0 instantly killed it the day the patch went live because of the health nerf. Because it was the first time flat nerfs went in across the board on the turn of expansion so that people could go and get content done. But yeah, no, some of those fights, I like Kael'thas on content was such a fun fight, if not really frustrating with the placement of the advisors. If you didn't kill them in a specific spot, you screwed yourself. If you didn't have people that knew how to do action buttons for Lady Vash and could throw the core, you were screwed. Like, there are a lot of fights which you can look back and go like, this would be really cool if they did a newer version of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I go, there are a lot of players that wouldn't be able to handle that.
I think that's why it would be fun. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the time walking raids. Like, those are really fun, and I think they're a good way for players to appreciate some of the bigger raids that happen, like Illidan or Arthas, or, you know, I want to call them kind of like the cornerstone raids, right? Like the big bad for every season.
Yeah.
But I think it would be fun if they did, like outside of time walking, if you could just take a group of 20 people and go into a raid, like the Sunwell.
I think that's what people were expecting from the anniversary one, but
Yeah.
we got really let down because it was like 30% of a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like, and I get it, because the anniversary event is really, they actually extended it, which was nice, but I understand why they didn't for that, because there's a lot of people that don't want that. They want the shorter version of it, and they're not gonna do the mechanics right. Like, I remember doing it, like, there were so many people that had no idea what was going on, and they just, like, stood in the plague, and I was like, that's fair.
They didn't know, yeah.
But I think it would be neat if there was a way for you to do that with a raid team, because then people would be able to go and do, like, Gorfiend, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, this sucks, or this is really hard, or, you know, to give people the prestige.
I think if there was a way, I think this goes back to having time walking available, like, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, with the special weeks being the ability to, like, turn on the raids. But I think if there was an ability to time walk an old raid, like you said, and like have the gear scale up. Yeah, sure. If we go and time walk AQ40 at 120, the gear's not really going to be massively optimized, and I'm going to have poison resistance and arcane resistance.
But it'd be fun because it
You
would
know,
not be
it could
easy.
be different. The problem I see with that is
You need
there
Frostmage.
would be a hot list of what would be the best thing to go and get. Like, I imagine that rogues would want to do time walking Gruul's Lair to all get a Dragon Spine trophy. Like, because that would be a best in slot.
Right.
But then it also comes back to the problem of personal loot, and that system needs to get in the bin. I'll be honest with you. This is gonna be the hill I'm gonna die on. Is that personal loot needs to get back in the bin because it's horrible, especially in pre-made group content.
Yeah, pre-made.
Like,
I say Pugs. I'm okay.
I don't care. Keep it in Pugs. Anything that's a pre-made group should not have personal loot.
Yeah.
And I because I'm sick of going through. I'll use this as an example. So I do a weekly run of Mythic BOD to try and get the Jaina Mount. I run it with the Jaina Buddies Discord and everything else because they're a cool bunch of folks and everything else. Last week I got one bit of loot with 2 coins, and it was a trinket. This week I got 4 or 5 bits of loot, including with coins, and I'm now 2 pieces off the Mythic BOD set. But like, it's all personal, you know, and it's just like personal loot just frustrates me because even though the loot drops, I don't have a chance to like go for something I want.
Yeah, because then you have the hey, does anybody need this? If people remember to ask about it, it would be nice to be like, hey, need and greed, because that system in pre-mades works well when everybody agrees on the rules to need and greed. It did not work well in Pugs, and because I remember getting into and I remember in vanilla someone yelling at me for rolling need on that and be like, well, no. We brought you in on this run, but you weren't supposed to roll need on this thing, even though we brought you in on it. I was like, okay, you told me ahead of time.
It's the same as DKP and everything else.
Yeah.
Like newer raiders back in the day would get told to have something that they could track it, but they don't know how to use it or anything else because they're just told to have it installed and ready to go.
My guild broke up in its first incarnation over DKP.
Minus. Many handle it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember going into raids and like you weren't the top of the DKP list, so you're like, okay, I'm just in here tonight. You have healing. I'm not going to get any loot.
Every loot system is flawed that's implemented by a player.
Yeah.
The problem is that the game needs to have a loot system that works for everybody, and taking that choice away from everybody does nothing but harm the game.
Yeah.
Like I'm still of the mind that if you finish a Mythic Plus in time, everybody should get a bit of loot regardless.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen, and it really makes me sad. Like,
I mean, finishing it in time is not easy to. I mean, even if you're doing like a 1 or a 2, it's like, hey, you still did it in time.
Yeah.
I don't know. You should get rewarded for completing the task.
But yeah, I don't know how we got from the leveling queue into shitting on the loot system. I don't know how we managed to do that.
I think it was rewards for different like leveling and making leveling its own reward.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
I think there's something to be said for improving leveling, but there's a lot that needs to be done because there are people that will level via quests. You know, there are people that will speed level and
Dungeons.
just pick up massive groups of mobs and just cleave them all down. And there are people that will level via dungeons. And I'm going to roll back to another personal bugbear. The leveling queue needs to be fixed. There needs to be a toggle that everybody can just queue into one massive dungeon lump.
Oh yeah, and because the Final Fantasy 14, at least when I was played, had that, and that was so like I loved playing Hawk Manor. I mean, it might have been like 45, 50, and I still got to play Hawk Manor, and well, no, Wakehurst Manor is now even cooler than that, but that was one of my favorites.
I think
if every dungeon is going to be able to scale from 10 to 50, there is no feasible excuse to not have them all in one drop down menu.
Yeah, it'll increase the queue size. It'll increase what the amount of people in that pool.
Well, well, so I would be surprised if that doesn't come at some point, just because like they're implementing, if they haven't already in the alpha, because I'm not in the alpha and it's fine. But like they've implemented, like you can squish down to someone else's level, you can sync to do a quest you've already done. Like I'm guessing that that's coming. I would like.
So
especially-
party sync is still a thing.
Okay.
The way the dungeons are currently is that it's still a drop-down menu
Okay.
per expansion, which I hate.
Yeah.
But it's also a good thing because
It's
they're
easier to
people,
find, but
yeah. But you're stuck within that drop-down menu for people that. But there was a difference between people in your level bracket that are choosing between 2 expansions. You're now going to have a large group of people between 10 and 50 choosing every expansion. There's a massive disparity that's going to be there. Like, I highly doubt that people, if they want to queue via dungeons, are going to choose anything from classic all the way up until mists. They're not going to choose dungeons for warlords or anything else. And we don't know quite yet if in Chromie time, if you choose to level in warlords, if you can select any dungeon queue that's not warlords. We don't know that yet.
Okay.
I just think that if they should just amalgamate all of the dungeons into a queue, I don't even care if they keep it as a separate drop-down menu or anything else. But it also falls into the same problem that they're keeping level brackets for stuff.
Right. Well, and that might be one of those systems that's really difficult to take out. Like, I don't pretend to sound like I know how WoW is coded. I just have heard secondhand from people that do work on WoW that a lot of the code is like a lot of the old stuff is just it's old and it's really tough to like tweak and work on, and they have to like they'll tweak something in like BFA and then it'll break something all the way back in like Outlands or something, and they're like,
yeah. The simple answer is to turn around and stick in a whole new engine, but that'll come up with a whole billion new types of breaks.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like the BlizzCon stuff that they were talking about, I think it was both last BlizzCon and the one before, they were talking about like for Classic, how they taken Classic and they stuffed it in the new engine.
That was incredible. Yeah.
Right. And I think they're using a lot of what they're learning on WoW, and they're trying to like go back and retroactively make all of these things. And I would imagine it's a very difficult thing to do. So I'm definitely giving them slack when they're like, yeah, this is going to take a while because we tried it.
I mean, as a bunch of content creators around the internet, we can do all our best to bitch about the game we love so much and offer creative solutions, but we're absolutely not devs.
Yeah, like I was upset at the Battle.net friends list being a point until I was explained to me very nicely all the things to go on. I'm like, okay, now I know why there's the limit that it is at that what it is.
I mean, the biggest thing that you could probably antiquate this to is that everybody wants the game to be on a global release cycle. Final Fantasy XIV does it, and that will be the biggest thing that everybody will refer to. Like, Final Fantasy XIV and any new modern game that's released will come out with a global release cycle. What they don't realise is that WoW is a 15-year-old plus game working on antiquated tech, and the server technology is probably not there. It probably will be if they decide to go, well, this is what we want to do. Because the difference between setting everybody's launch cycle is a matter of just setting it to go live at a set point on a certain time. You know, there's a difference between that and then them having the code in America, sending it to EU and Asia and everything else so that everybody's good to go on time.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling like Square has a different way of doing things for FF14 than Blizzard will probably do. Because it's like if this was 10 years ago when the EU blues and like the blues for each region were really active, and now all the blues just seem to be very pulled back and very US centric. Like,
yeah,
I'd say because even way back in the day there was content creator summits in France at the Blizzard HQ over in France way back in the day. You know, now they're only held in America.
Yeah, a lot of that sadly came from moving people off of those teams, closing offices, the layoffs. We lost a lot of our community managers in the.
Well, times change. You know, people move on and everything else. The difference is that I imagine it would have been very different if they had a fully like. I imagine what could be at the HQs in each area are literally the customer support teams for the regions.
Yeah.
I imagine that's fully exactly what it is these days.
Because like I would like mega servers like ESO has mega servers, and that would actually be a pretty cool thing. But I know that's a huge.
No, I fully agree. I think we're past the point now where putting together small shards is not healthy for the game, and having so many different. It was useful between Classic and Wrath when the player base was so huge, and the answer was to, instead of trying to get better server space and shut servers down while they fit it, to add more servers. That was absolutely the answer. But now we're at the point where Blizzard don't want to do that because people are really they feel like people are historically bound to their server name.
I would say RP, especially because the RP community, and that one I get they're a community
You could quite easily shard all the RP servers together. Everything that's an RP listed as an RP server now, push them all together. Everything that's not an RP server that's listed as a normal or what used to be the old PvP servers, you can shard all of them together so that they work together, and then people that still want to turn war mode on can turn war mode on because it doesn't affect the rest of the game. Yes.
Oh, I just
like you.
because I like to die.
That helps the entire RP community because everybody that's on an RP server will now all be together instead of like the EU is. I'm sure there's like a good example for the US, but the EU has Argent Dawn, biggest EU server, and then everywhere else has like small shards of EU. But if you push them all together, they're all RPing together. You foster new communities and everything else.
Yeah, I think the only thing that is that I've seen that people don't like about that is some people go to small servers on purpose just because it's quiet. I recently moved to Earthen Ring, which Dalaran is a large server. I've been there since I started the game.
Mm-hmm.
And going to Earthen Ring, I'm like walking to Orgrimmar, I'm like, just little tumbleweeds going past. I'm like, there is not a single person online right now. I'm like, what is this?
The thing is that I think that the given dead patches on every server around the world will still be a constant. Like Silvermoon will still be a dead sea. As pretty as it is, it would still be a dead sea.
Have you gone to Silvermoon on an RP server?
On RP, yeah, because
it's not.
All cities are full on RP servers.
I'm on an RP server, and Silvermoon is dead where I am.
Okay.
Wow.
Funny enough, my main's on Earthen Ring, so on the EU. So that's actually really funny.
Okay. Well, then maybe you understand.
It's just
weird. Like even on Dalaran, I'd go up to Silvermoon and I'd see at least 10 people running around there. So like for me, it's weird to go to an RP server where there's no one because I'm like, I'd expect there to be a lot more people.
Yeah.
When a lot of the EU people moved to Argent Dawn, like Earthen Ring used to be like the second biggest RP server way back in the day, and then a lot of people migrated to Argent Dawn, and it's now the largest, and everywhere else just pales in comparison. But we're still marked as an RP server because that's what it's always been.
And I want to preface that we are talking retail and not classic. I get on classic though. Have you seen classics been getting weird? Not weird, but like there's been some people moving like huge guilds over and then being blacklisted away from it. A bit like one guild said we're going to move over to this realm. It was going to like change the population, and they basically said if we know who you are, you're not going to get in any party. So they were, and yeah. There's a lot of
that does not sound healthy at all for that. That server community.
I don't know all the specifics. So I'm not going to get into the details on that. I don't take any sides on that. Just interesting.
The only feasible reason I could see why that would happen on Classic at all is because of the Gates of Anchorage. Because that's going to be coming soon.
Yes, that is true.
I want to be there so badly, except I'm only like 20 maybe.
I'll tell you what, since we're talking about Classic, I want to bring up an interesting point. And Katie, you'll probably remember this probably better than Frazley.
Okay.
But pre-nerf Cthulhu. Do you remember all the big hullabaloo around pre-nerf Cthulhu?
I don't think so.
Okay, so the big hullabaloo about pre-nerf Cthulhu is that Ian Hazakostas at Elitist Jerks was one of the guys that turned around to the WoW devs and said the numbers don't work out. The numbers that the people are putting out in vanilla WoW to kill Cthulhu weren't going to work. Now, we look at the way that classic WoW is and how everybody is treating the game and that they're clearing it so much faster at a lower item level and everything else. Do you think they'll put pre-nerf Cthulhu into the game on classic WoW and then people will destroy it because of the 15 years of practice?
That's a good question.
What sort of statement do you think that's going to make?
Well, that is a good question. It's like it has really fundamentally changed. Like even though it's vanilla, you've had people that have been practicing on these private servers for years and years. Yeah. And even I know that some of the private servers were able to tweak things on occasion.
Yeah. But the practice still remains the same. Because...
Yes, and now you can just go YouTube how to do classic Cthulhu or whatever, or there are guides or endless amounts of resources. I mean, there's even the old strategy guides that I've pulled open just because it was fun to have them be relevant again. But I actually wouldn't be surprised.
I think they might do it as a lull.
I think so.
And then they'll leave it up for a week.
I think so. We'll see if anyone can do it, and if they can't, that actually might be something that they leave up for a little while just to see if anyone can as a challenge. And then give it a couple, not full cycles, but a couple weeks and be like, okay, if no one can get it down for sure, then either they could ask the community, hey, this is pre-nerf Cthulhu. Do you want this or should we take it away? Do you want this challenge? I think that's something that actually would be a good talking point for the classic devs. Yeah. Is to actually use that as a thing of saying, look, we've seen what you've done to Molten Core. We've seen what you've done to BWL. Do you want pre-nerf Cthulhu? Have you seen did you see what they did to Hakar as well? No, but I did hear they got Hakar down pretty fast, didn't they?
They did. So the biggest thing I saw was they used a line of sight strat. They took about, I think it was it was 90% warriors, and it just melted. They just ignored the entire mechanic and they just killed it. They killed it in less than 2 minutes. It was absolutely ridiculous.
I shouldn't say that's not fun. I think it's fun for some people, but I don't know. At some point, it's tough. WoW is a very different game now than it used to be. And so people are coming in with 15 years of experience playing Warcraft, retail or otherwise, and then they're just like, oh yeah, we'll just, take 15 warriors in or however many warriors it is. And back in the day, no one would have done that because
no. Well, it was warriors and a load of priests. I think that was it.
Right, but nobody does that, or nobody did do that as far as I know back in the day. It's oh hey, I'm gonna bring my friend in from down the block and he plays whatever. And it's someone's like, yeah, well I know this guy that I did a dungeon with, and we can bring him in, and then you're all standing out there around the summoning stone, just hey, so this guy said he'd join us, and then that guy winds up ninjaing and dipping out, and you're just
that was I mean, there's still people that do that.
That's true. There are some people that do that.
There's a streamer who did that. Yeah.
It's classic WoW in a bloody nutshell, to be fair.
Yes.
But the way that the game is now compared to what it was is very different, and it has to be treated as such. Yeah. And I think that the vanilla the classic devs are in a special position where they could possibly turn around and open a line of communication which says, we've seen what you've done. Do you want this as a challenge?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that might also let them... It's interesting because I don't know how many builds of the old Warcraft they have. I know that they had to ask for old server blades back at one point because that had some of the old code on it. But...
It's... The only reason I bring this up is because I saw, I think it was an Asmongold stream. I was watching highlights on YouTube, as you do, because YouTube's a lot easier to digest because it picks up the fine points. But he was actually looking at the numbers of bosses in Naxxramas and the health that they have, and broken it down by that Hakar video and the DPS the warriors were putting out, and working out what the raid DPS would need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it was like 3 million divided by like X amount of warriors, so much DPS, and it would turn out how much DPS each person in the raid would need to do. And I think WoW's in, especially classic WoW raiding's in that point where it was in vanilla, you had 40, but you had some slacks. But now everybody who seems to have their head switched on, like unless it's like a social-esque guild, like who not perfect with rotations or anything else. I think people in those top guilds like playing to the best they can, and they treat it the same way like Method and that would treat a mythic raid in current, like up to date WoW. It's very interesting sort of math to see.
Yeah, and I think, again, I know we already said this, but I think that's one of the main differences between the original classic player base and, you know, what we had expected back then versus, you know, people being like, oh yeah, I'm just going to basically method this boss and it's going to be great. And you're like, that boss was not made for that sort of, you know.
No, it wasn't. Yeah,
made for that in mind. It was made for like the priest you recruited down the street to come in and be like, hey guys, so what's this fight again? And you're like, yeah, no, this guy's totally good.
What do I do?
What do I do? Where do I stand?
Hey,
why did I die?
Hey guys, I've put 31 talents into discipline, but I don't have penance.
Or it's like, why is that warrior wearing leather? It's like, it looks cool. It's like, no, that's not how you play your class.
That's it. I want to be a rainbow in TBC.
I really want them to make Burning Crusade servers. I think they actually probably will do legacy servers.
I think it's the way that they're gonna go, because
so.
it's information that they already have, rather than putting a lot of dev time in to make brand new content. Don't get me wrong, I'd love Classic Plus. I think it would be really interesting to see content that they originally planned for, but the dev team that was there for vanilla WoW isn't there anymore. Like, any that are working on the mainline game, like the modern WoW, and the mindset for any new content that's going to be created is going to be on the mindset of a current player rather than a classic WoW player.
Right. Well, and I think that's the way you'd have to make it, because the players these days, like even young players, are very different from players that, you know, when we all started WoW, right? Like that was my first MMO, and I was like,
free time.
Wow, I'm like, I could run around. There's another person. Like, you know, these days, like, oh, I'm streaming. I'm like doing all this stuff. I'm like, I'm just gonna text my friend real quick. I'm like, no, it was all like X-Fire and AOL chats and stuff.
Oh, X-Fire.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, yes.
I'm so glad you guys remember what that is, because I said that to my brother. He's like, what's X-Fire? I'm like, well, you clearly didn't play as much as I did.
What was the name of the MP3 player that everybody used?
Oh,
Winamp.
Yes.
Winamp.
Yes.
Really
Winamp,
likes the llama.
Oh my god! All right, I think we need to call this an end before we outdate everything.
Oh no! One more.
Okay, one more.
Go on.
I hate all these chat apps now. There's like 1,000 chat apps. Do you remember Trillion and Adium?
No.
It was
never heard of them.
These were like programs to bring like all your ICQ, your IM, your Yahoo all together.
Frazley, I am a simple man with simple tastes who use Windows Instant Messenger and Windows Live Messenger.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Simple man with simple tastes.
Because like now I got Instagram message, I got Discord, I've got Battle.net.
Oh yeah, we've got all of these things now. All of these new
WhatsApp, Telegram.
WhatsApp. Oh my god, Telegram, Slack, everything.
Oh yes, Teams.
Oh my god,
Zooms.
Yeah. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been Stories Around Azeroth. Thank you very much to our guest, Katie from Clanker and the Goblin?
Tauren and the Goblin.
Tauren and the Goblin.
I mean, Klanker and the Goblin. You know, it's all about me.
It's all about you. That's it. That's it. If they want to look for you around the internet, Katie, where can they find you?
Sure. So you can find the Tauren and the Goblin on just about every podcasting. I should have the list. I don't, but I know that you can find us on like iTunes, Twitcher. You can find us on Mash Those Buttons as well, mashthosebuttons.com. That's our main place. You can find us on Twitter at Tauren Goblin, and you can find me at HyroleMaster77 because I love Legend of Zelda. And that's pretty much our main areas. We're also on YouTube as well, and Twitch.
YouTube.
Yep.
Mr. Frazley, where can they find you around the internet, sir?
You can find me on A1's Messenger at Virtual Carl Banks. You can find me on Twitter at FrazlyTastic. Find my podcast, Frazlycast, where I talk to different people like Pete and Katie. at gnomepodcast.com. And if you want some interesting shenanigans around like leveling stuff and talking to people in outhouses, you can find me streaming at gnome.live.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can find me on my main account at Titans Creed. You can find me on my gaming specific one if you just want YouTube and the podcast updates and the stream updates at Gaming Phoenix. You can find podcasts like this live and my charity stream in a few weeks over on twitch.tv/Project Phoenix Productions. Or if you can't catch us live, you can catch the VODs of everything over at youtube.com/Project Phoenix Productions. And Stories Around Azeroth will be on all good podcast catchers, wherever you may listen to us. It's a fun time to listen to. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much to Katie from Tauren The Goblin for joining us this week. It's been a fun little chat, and I'm sure we could talk about bollocks for the next couple of hours if we really wanted to.
I certainly could, but thank you for having me. It's been absolutely wonderful.
As always, Mr. Frazley and I will be back next week. We are joined by Jin and Fear.
Yes, of Morally Grey Podcast.
Morally Grey Podcast. Jin's coming back and he's bringing his buddy Fear with us. That's been it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure once again. And until next time, as Mr. Frazley likes to say,
Be awesome and check the podcast on Google Video.